Said he did that, and I didn't test it out.
Does it look like it's recording right now?
Yes, it
Yes, it
does.
does. All right, we are recording.
Sam saves the day. Thank you.
All right, so today is September 10th, 2019. I'm Brian Lyles, and this is the bi-weekly Octant Community Meeting. And for everyone paying attention, we do have an agenda doc, and we will make sure that gets shared for your viewing later. But let's get started. So this is our first Octant public community meeting, and really for everyone watching, what Octant is it's a web-based application that allows you to visualize what's going on in your Kubernetes clusters. We are putting in special work to make sure that developers have the information they need so that we can provide more information around what should we get with kube control, get, describe, delete, apply, auth, and anything else we can think of. So really, this is more of a shortcut for anyone using Kubernetes. So I want to get started today with the review of our next upcoming release. We had originally planned or stated that we were going to do this release either yesterday or today, but that's not going to happen. So we'll probably move it out towards the end of the month. But I wanted to go over the high-level features that will be in the release. So one second here, and I will actually share my screen so everyone can see this. All right. There we go. Let me make, there we go. So we're tracking all of the work for Octant on GitHub, and specifically we're using ZenHub. And this view right here is just the ZenHub plugin for GitHub. So what we've done is we've actually broken the work down into, right now, into multiple releases. And let me just clear this filter. And so we have multiple swim lanes here, and we have a sprint backlog and things that are going on. But I just want to focus on 0.7 and what will and what will not be in there. So right now, 0.7 has about 10 items that have yet to be taken up. But let me just go through them from the top. So what we've been trying to do is focus on a mix of bugs with enhancements, with just bugs and enhancements. So a lot of this release was bugs that we found when we released 0.6. So let me go through the top. So we have this, we have an issue with tabs and sharing of state. So we don't want the state to be shared between two different tabs, and that's happening right now. So this is number 179. Number 43 is we have this idea for an Octant status view. This will actually get moved out of this, this 0.7 release, but we wanted to show the status of Octant so you didn't have to rely on the command line output as much. And we want to be able to move those things here. But with time and focusing on other features, this one is not quite yet all thought out, so we won't be doing this one. And actually, let me remove this right now. There we go. Next one is number 49, and it's handle timeouts when contacting master. And the issue here is that sometimes the master can go away or it can be slow. And we want to be able to give a good experience. Right now, we just complain loudly that there's issues contacting the master. But if you're not looking at the web or looking at the command line output, you might miss it. So we want to get rid of that. And number 149 is documenting how verbosity works inside of Octant, because you can actually launch it with different values for logging debug output. and it's not everyone thought about it in the same way. So we're going to make sure we have documentation around that. This next one, 56, is make it possible to make the resource viewer the default view. And this is actually part of a larger project where we want to be able to control the initial view just in general for when you go to Octant. Right now, when you go to Octant, you're in this dashboard view, and it might not be the best view for everyone. So we would like to make it so that the resource view could be the default. And this next one, 46, is plugins registered with the same GBK is duplicated. I'm standing firm on this one. This is not it's not a bug. It's actually a feature. The real problem is that we don't have an answer for what happens whenever you name plugins the same thing. And coming from the community, the plugins could be the same thing. So I don't know, and actually I'm still looking for more input on this one of what we should do, because we can do a tooltip, like I said before here. Maybe we should just say, hey, that's just how it works. And if you don't want it to be duplicated, come up with a better name. This is the low code, no code solution. So I'll actually be pinging our public Slack with this one to get some feedback, because I'm still not sure what we should do here. And
so in this case, whoever uploaded the plugin, they just use a different name for it, but it was the exact same code of the plugin. So the UI integration just created the same one, right?
Well, no. So whenever what will happen, the reason this happens is if you copy our sample plugin and then don't change the plugin name, they'll just show two of the same name.
Do plugins have any unique differentiator, like a unique name beyond what the UI shows? We could add that, right, and disallow two people to have the exact. So, for example, the plugin have a unique name, and beyond the UI name, right, whatever with the visible name that we display, and then we can basically force the unique name to be unique.
So the question, Michael, would be then, what would that unique name be?
They can choose whatever they want, right? It's just something that's associated with the plugin. They can choose that, and as long as that's not duplicated, then if someone goes and intentionally in the UI creates two separate plugins with the same name in the UI, then that's their fault.
Well, and that's the point that I'm making, is that if you do create two plugins with the same name, that's on you. We can differentiate between plugins, but it's basically garbage in, garbage out for us. So if you're giving the same name, we're going to take two with the same name.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's where I would like to leave it and just say, yeah, rename your plugin, rather than, because the alternative is that we do something and now it's not. I mean, we can make it idempotent, but the problem is that the resolution that we could give up wouldn't be satisfactory. Where if we just said, if we found another plugin name, we just wouldn't load it.
Got it.
So I don't like that option at all.
I mean, I could see a scenario where if you're developing a plugin, maybe you have like one version of it running and then another version of it that you're continuing to work on, and you have them both side by side. You probably want the same, plugin name for both, right?
I mean, yeah, you could, but the thing is, and here's the interesting piece, the path for that link is not the same. So it's a unique path, just the same text. So I actually don't think it's a problem. I just think, just don't do that.
Okay.
So I'll actually put that in there as my comment.
Yeah, well, just go ahead and just resolve it as one fix. Let's move on.
Well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put in there, hey, I don't really think this is a problem, and then resolve it. And this was internal. I know Sam Fu created this one months ago, so hopefully his feelings will not be hurt. All right, moving on the list. Next one is 139, and just as a little sidebar, I will only go through this one time. This is the first time, and I want people to see what we've been working on and what comprises a release. This will be changing, but I just wanted to go through it for our new people on the call. So the next one is 139, a feature request for showing RBAC in a much more useful form. This is still in process, and once again will not be a 0.7. But the gist of this is that I think we can do some really good work around showing in RBAC, showing how to edit RBAC. So managing cluster roles and cluster role bindings, and showing it in a way that is easy to understand for a user. And we haven't put any design work into it. The person who submitted this pull request actually had some ideas of some neat things here, but the one issue that we run into is that we can't do it just like kube control off CANI -list. I want to have it just a little bit more interactive than that tool. So this actually needs some back-end design thoughts and some UX design thoughts of where we would like to be on this. But I do consider this one pretty important, so I'm going to remove this one to the next release. All right, the next one here is enhancements, and it's a show all namespaces and cluster overview. I actually don't know how this one got in here. And the gist of this one is if you have a smaller cluster and like the kube control, like the Kubernetes dashboard, you can actually set it up to be all namespaces and get all your namespaces in one place. So we could actually just have all namespaces. Octant from the start was set up to be namespace specific. And the way that we work, we can be either or we can be or. We actually can support both, but they will not work in the same way because the way that we look at namespaces, and because namespaces can have different permissions on them, we actually can't do a list across every single namespace if we don't have cluster-wide permissions. If we do not have cluster-wide permissions, what we actually have to do is iterate through every namespace that we can talk to and then combine all the results and then show that. It's possible, but probably should think about what this means before attempting to do it. And the next one is 235, add a hacking MD. We probably should rethink our README just in general. It's getting kind of big. But the hacking MD will allow people to have a complete set of documentation if they want to work on Octant. It's something that I don't think we've done a great enough job with yet. And this last one is the wrong URL. There was a case where the URL would change to the wrong item. Actually, let me see what their example was. All right, so this is inside the resource viewer. Whenever you clicked on it, it gave you the wrong URL. This is bug. This will be actually worked on and fixed. So this is what we have to go. This is about the work that we need to do before we can release a 0.7. But in the meantime, we're going to start planning for 0.8. We'll make some noise about that in our chat and on our mailing list, but that has not been worked out yet. Any questions? All right. No questions from you, Michael?
Nope.
Okay. So the next thing here is I would like to get us to the point where we can do demos at least once a month. But it'd be nice if we could do demos all the time. But in lieu of that, I actually do have a demo or some. Actually, I do have a demo of some work that's been going on of things that something will be in 0.7. Are moved to WebSockets. And the reason we moved to WebSockets is because with we were using HTTP event streaming, and HTTP event streaming is you basically can long poll on a URL and it will send events, which you can then apply JavaScript handlers to do work when things come in. The problem that we kept on running into was that the front end of the application and the back end of the application were both holding business logic. And because they're both holding business logic, it was sometimes hard to know who owned this business logic. And right now, all the business logic should be in the back end. So move the whole app to WebSockets. And now, because the app is WebSockets, what we can do is make sure that the front end is basically just a shell for showing output, and the back end actually is responsible for everything, all the way down to when the front end has a URL change, it'll actually say, hey, back end, my URL is this. The back end can then asynchronously respond back and say, no, your URL should be this, and the front end should adjust it and take the content that it's going to get. And with this, we have management of context and namespaces and the navigation and query params. And let me show you how it all works, or I'll show you a demo of it. So let's see here. So this is Octant running locally for me. And this is the WebSocket view. Looks really no different than the other view. That's on purpose. But now, all these sections, so you have this sidebar section and the namespace selections and the filters and the context in the top right corner and the overview, and I mean like all the component views, this is all served by WebSockets. And like I was saying before, whenever we change paths, we're actually telling the backend what our path is, and our backend is telling us what our content should be. So it seems it's not synchronous at all. It's very asynchronous. And just to show you exactly what I'm talking about here, let me reload this page. There is a WebSocket and there is traffic going back and forth all the time. So what this gives us is now it's way easier to test Octant in its parts. So the front end, because there's no business logic now, what we can do, our testing for it is basically when an action happens up front, say I click a link or I select a new namespace, we can now just test on those, but we don't have to be concerned about what the, we don't have to be concerned about the business logic. We just be concerned that we're making a WebSocket call. And you'll notice that was blank. There's two tiny little bugs in here that we're still working out right now of making sure that we're always updating content. But you'll notice that this thing did change to its new namespace. And a neat thing is, it was kind of hard to do, and I'll close this window, is actually taking the, reading in the path whenever the page is loaded and making all the necessary adjustments. So this is all pretty a big deal. But the neat part about this is now it's easier to add new functionality to Octant. So let's say if we wanted to add some kind of new bar up here for some kind of thing. Now we just create events for it, and we can unit test it very well on the back end, and we can make the components and have those unit tested very well, and we can marry those together rather than having a lot of complexity in the front end for being able to display disparate items. So I told Sam yesterday I would do a walkthrough, but I wanted to know if what level of walkthrough you were interested in, and if you want to actually see the WebSocket stuff a little bit more, I can actually show you a little bit more about that.
Yeah, the type of walkthrough I'm really looking at is like, say, how do we make sure that the WebSocket is actually returning the information we want for a printer, generally what debugging looks like with the tools that you're using currently. And,
okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let me show you a quick debugging type thing that we can do with Octant and WebSockets. So what I'm doing here is, let me just change a path here real quick. And the reason I'm doing that is so I can copy and paste this little JSON piece right here. And what we'll do now is I was telling you about this browser WebSocket client. It's a Chrome extension, and it just does WebSockets. So I'll cut and paste this message in here for a second. But now the URL is localhost 777/API/v1/stream. So now we can connect to this thing, And now we can actually see the messages come in real time from the back end. And you notice as soon as I connect it and I didn't do anything, it starts sending navigation, the context, and the content for a page, because it's going to make some assumptions about where we are given some defaults. So right now we haven't sent any message to it, and this is what will happen on the front end, and the front end digests this stuff to present the view that we see right here. So if we were to make a call, and I'm just going to send this JSON message right here, which is a set content path to a different namespace. And once I do that, what we'll see quickly is that now when I set the content path, it actually came back and told me, update your content path. And now it's sending content, which would be basically this page. So this would replace things like curl. So now you could either use this, or you could find a command line WebSocket tool to do that. And like I was saying before, there's WSCat, and I'm sure we can find more. Curl might even do it, to tell you the truth, because curl does everything. But it's easier to understand now. For the one reason it's easier, so let me clear these messages and I'll send this again, is now instead of just having an opaque path with a query parameter, now what we have is actual functions. So we can actually say set content path. I know what the payload looks exactly like this. And on the back end, when the back end sending message to the front end, we can now have the front end all event based. So you'll notice that in the first column here, it says type. So whenever the front end gets namespaces messages, it looks at this current namespaces that it has and it updates them. Or there's also a namespace one too. So it'll change the namespace that it's using. And we see the one for kubeconfig. And this is actually very similar to what we were doing before with the event handlers. These are the exact same names, to tell you the truth. And we were just using them as event handlers. But now we're processing them as WebSocket messages. And one of the biggest benefits that we're going to get out of this is that before, when we were using the event streamer, we had to rely on a client being connected to create this poller where we could send messages. The problem is that in any particular case, there was no way to broadcast to all the pollers a message. Let's say we had an error on the back end, or be able to communicate things that we don't know about now in real time. So now with this WebSocket and moving the way that we're managing this state, you can actually just talk to one WebSocket client, or you can talk to all of them, and you can start sending them messages. So now we can start distributing the generation of these messages throughout the application rather than just having them in one place, which means ultimately that it should be easier to get these messages in there. And we can put this code closer to where it should be. So that's the reason why. We talked about this months ago, and I said it was going to be hard and I didn't want to do it. And what brought this on was we had an issue with context switching. And I realized that it was very hard to let the front end know all the state without having to send the state. So that's whenever I said, well, now it's time to move WebSockets, because I don't want to share all this data if we don't have to share all this data. So that's where this comes from. So I think we have just 2 tiny little bugs that need to be fixed, but I would love for everyone to start trying it out and seeing if they can break it, because it's not actually a big change, but it is a different way of what we're doing before. So it's still very new.
Is there a cluster somewhere where someone can go and target Octant against it, so it has a lot of data populated in apps, or should everybody just create their own cluster and try this out?
So one thing that we are just saying, use your own cluster. We actually have data inside of Octant, not a large amount, but I'll show you where we have it. So under examples, under the Octant project itself, under example and resources, we actually do have some. We don't have a large cluster, but we have, so we can do a lot of different types here.
Okay, so you can deploy all of these and basically get a good sample view in there. Got it.
Yeah, you definitely could, and we can apply them. We can apply them right out of here if you have it, and just use cube. Right now, use cube control apply. In the future, we will change that
Yeah.
definitely. But
Brian, is that like the fashion store or whatnot? Is that one of the examples in there?
no, so there are other examples too, and this is another project that I'm working on outside of this group. Getting more community things. But if you wanted to try an application itself, Google Cloud has a project with some kind of store. We'll get that into the notes of what that store was, and you can apply that too, because we definitely use that during development, just so we could have a lot of web services running at one time and being able to see them all work together.
I think that would be super helpful, especially to show off Resource Viewer. So.
Yeah, that's actually a good point to put that in there. The reason I didn't before is because I actually just didn't do it, but I think the whole team used it. We just didn't put it in the docs.
Sam just put the link in Zoom chat, and you can put it in the HackMD.
All right, so that's that. So let me stop sharing here, and actually, I'll share. I'll go back. I'll put this thing over here since I'm still sharing things. So let me see. Tim, could you find that and put that in this link?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, thank you. All right, so now that we have half an hour left or less, I wanted to actually solicit more feedback topics or more discussion topics from everyone else on here. I've been talking for half an hour. So what else do we want to talk about?
We can drop a quick note about the website, octant.dev. So we're going through final changes with the designers, and I think most of the content has already ran through editing and legal. So hopefully, once the final approval comes out, they'll actually give me the code for the website so I can start doing things to it, because they're not going to release that until the contractors get paid. But I think we're looking out at a timeline for probably a month for the website.
All right.
Yeah, and on the website, I asked Amanda, and since Jonas is out, to make sure we'll get to view and review. I haven't seen what it looks like, so I'd love to actually check it out before it goes live.
All right. Anything else we want to talk about? Any features you all would like to see?
Well, I do have at least one question.
Yes.
So, I demoed Octant at VMworld and using Fusion, running Minikube, and everything worked great. It was a great demo. And the one thing that I noticed, though, so I have some clusters in DigitalOcean, and then I've got my Minikube stuff, is the stuff in DigitalOcean, I can do the port forward, but the stuff inside of Minikube, I'm not able to. Is that a known issue? I haven't filed a bug yet, but.
No, that is not a known issue. That's actually the one I don't use is, so yeah, it's funny. I don't use Minikube. I tested this on DigitalOcean and AWS, and like we stood up a cluster, and then I have it running locally with Kind, but I don't use Minikube. So maybe that is something that that could be a bug.
Yeah, I'll file the issues. So I wrote a homebrew formula for the Docker machine driver. So we were testing that and getting that working. So that's sort of how I got in touch with the homebrew community and whatnot. But yeah, I was just doing the demo, and I'm like, all right, so you install it with this Docker machine driver, homebrew, go, and then, okay, let's show it up. And I'm like, look, I'll port. Wait, no, I won't port forward.
Yeah, Michael, I think overwhelmingly folks in our
use Kind, right?
VMware use Kind, exactly. So
yeah, I feel so. Where I draw the line between the two is like Kind is if like you're building stuff that is going to live in a real big Kubernetes environment. Kind is the way to go. If you're like learning it and trying to figure it out and poke around and like even just get applications and services running, Minikube's a really easy click the go button and away you go. And it is a certified Kubernetes installation. So it makes sense.
No, that does
I
make
like it. I
sense.
use it a lot.
So actually, I would suggest create an issue for that, because I was not aware that it did not work with Minikube. Because what we're doing is we're using a port forward API. We're not doing any of the heavy lifting ourselves. So the question would be, if you can get it to work with kube control port forward, why wouldn't it work with Octant? Because they're actually using the same code path.
Yeah, it
So,
might be that Minikube needs to support that particular API and it doesn't right now.
yeah, I'm not quite sure, but create a bug and we'll definitely get on that.
Cool. One thing I will also note is there's an ongoing documentation bug. I'm happy to pick it up, which is around documenting the differences from the official Kubernetes dashboard. I don't know if there's an owner on that, but if there isn't, I'm happy to have that on my plate.
Well, Michael, thank you for stepping up.
Yeah, I just want to do the right thing and help out, right? Go team.
Yeah, so my stance on that is that, all right, well, let's tell you my stance on it. Kubernetes dashboard is a dashboard. It is nothing more than a dashboard. Octant actually started out as a troubleshooting tool. And we realized pretty quickly that you would need a dashboard to be able to explore during troubleshooting. But ultimately, that is not the only things that we will be showing or hope to be showing. So I didn't want to say that we're just competing against this as a dashboard, because that was more of a byproduct of trying to solve another problem. Because you know what, dashboards are good ideas sometimes. So that's how I look at it. But I mean, if someone wants to put that in much nicer words than what I just said, that would be great.
Happy to. And then the only other one that I wanted to comment on was, if I see that there's a dark theme request, if Wayne needed any help with that, I've gone through the exercise of converting my website so that it's dark mode aware. There's a couple of CSS flags, not particularly hard. Happy to. If Wayne gets stuck or anything like that, happy to chime in too.
You know what? You should ping Wayne. Wayne's sick today, but you should ping Wayne.
Yeah, I will. Cool. That's all. Thanks for I love this tool. I think it's great. I love showing it off. Folks that get it, they're like, dude, this thing's fantastic.
Well,
kudos.
that's great. I can't wait until we get more of the vision implemented, because it's actually, if you think this is neat, wait till you see some more of the vision. And I mean, it's not a secret. Things like, since one of the goals is to basically not replace, but to give another look and feel to kube control get and kube control describe, we actually do have some exploratory work for embedding a terminal inside of Octant. Problem is where is it going to run? Like, where does that terminal thing run? But that we can be creative with that. But trying to give you all the tools that you need to do your job right here, and then the things you don't know about, putting those in front of your face, because that's really what it comes down to. We also have some discussions going on with the resource viewer. Want to make it even more useful, more tactile, and really show the power of being able to do that. And combined with that, being able to extract more statuses from objects automatically. Because right now it's fairly manual, but watching what the Knative project did with how they are working on some of their duck typing in YAML, believe it or not, this is a thing. We figured out that what we can actually do is we can actually make this duck typing with conditions for any workload generating object, because they all generate conditions somehow, and being able to show those automatically, so we wouldn't have to maintain those things manually, and trying to figure out how to infer more logic and then infer more objects that are related without having to hard code those. Because like right now, we have to hard code a lot of those to make it work. Yeah, and it's a lot of work. Yeah, it is pretty exciting. I'm just happy that people have really enjoyed this project as much as they have. So any more discussion topics today? All right, well, I'm not going to keep you all here any longer. So today, I guess we'll just call this an end. Thanks for everyone for showing up. We'll get this video up as soon as we figure out where it is. We do have a YouTube site for it, so it will show up on YouTube. And we'll do this again in 2 weeks. So what's that? What's today, the 10th? So we'll do it again on the 24th. All right, see y'all then.
Thanks, everyone.
All right,
Bye.
Bye.